Good morning. It's me. This isn't going to be 3 minutes. This is so whatever. Um, First thing I want to mention this concerning my music project. Whether you understand it or you don't, whatever. It's not about I don't get real hung up on trying to understand things, especially when it's art. Art's just subjective. So. This was always my intention, was to communicate an event, which I've done through my lecture series. But if you like learning, and I love learning, the journey never stops. And so in the last week, I've embarked on a course where I'm fine-tuning my ability to detect an AI chat versus a human, and all the little nuances of differences that you look for. So, I've been reading. I've got this 20-page manual on how to do all that. And it includes spelling mistakes, unnecessary repetition, emojis, offensive language, names, incoherent texts, conversations that obviously couldn't happen over text, and so on and so on. And so I think about this situation I'm in and where conflict has arisen. And I know that when I wasn't feeling well, I'll put it that way, every time someone texted me, didn't really matter who it was, I would just fire back a bunch of nonsense, just one thing after another, like a cluster bomb kind of a thing. It's just like bang, 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 bang. And going through this course about what justifies a decent human text versus what's considered an AI-generated text, most of my texts fall into the AI category. Now, the weird thing about that is I've never used AI to chat or to create chats. I just seem to have tapped into the AI language and threw it into my text before AI became this prevalent issue that it is today. Now, I don't know why that happened, other than it's having to do with some sort of ability to see into the future. I have no idea. All I know is, for some reason, I can talk as though I'm an AI chatbot, like nobody's business. So now I'm wondering, all the folks that received all my texts and reacted so viscerally about them, it's like, why didn't you, I don't understand. If someone sent me all the crap that I've sent, I'd be like, that's not real. That's not a real person talking. And I would just brush it off, delete it, ignore it. And hopefully figure out a way to communicate human to human with the person I'm reaching out to. But if every time I texted someone and they fired back all this crap, that I would realize, this ain't normal. Something's not right. I wouldn't take that information, try to understand it or interpret it, and then take it back to another person and give my version of the interpretation of these texts, where that person takes it and puts it into a song. So the irony here is I have been accused of using AI to create my Chite music project. The fact is I've never used AI to write an ounce of my work. It's all from up here, and I threw it all on Logic Pro, and it all came together and apparently caused quite a stir in some anonymous community that I am actually not any part of. It just gets discussed amongst this community, and then they talk about it on Twitch at times. But it's like everybody's way, way, way overthinking everything that I'm doing. And now in Canada, it's kind of a mandate that if you're going to make weird art, you got to make it weird, and you got to make it somewhat incomprehensible. That's sort of our thing in this country for some reason. Have you ever watched cult classic films from Canada or anything like that? And that's not meaning religious cults. I mean film cult, the lesser known stuff is usually often extremely strange and weird, and you just don't really know what hit you. And as a Canadian artist, that's the tone I was going for when I branched out into this particular field of intrigue, knowing that that's kind of the stamp of a Canadian art form, is to make it somewhat ambiguous. Don't make the meaning prevalently obvious to the viewer. That's just part of the process of viewing art, is to create your own meaning out of it. Well, people have taken my Chite music project and created wild wild interpretations of what the actual intent was. And now I'm to the point where it's like, I'm not going to tell you what my intent was any further than I already have, because it's fun watching everyone react. Who knew little old me could create such a stir in the international scene? That was not my intention necessarily, but what I don't quite understand is I did not use AI for HT, but I pretended to be AI for my texts, and my texts became fodder for music. And then I got or experienced severe backlash because I was upset that my texts got thrown into songs. It's like, I'm just texting you total garbage. Why are you taking that and running with it? I mean, it's total garbage. There's 20 pages of information here about what a good text is, what a human-like text is, and what an AI-like text is. And almost every text I've sent since 2020 onward is more like an AI bot text than a human text. Very rarely do I send human text, and I've said this from the start. I can't get my brain to concise itself down to allow myself to be known through a text. If you want to make, short and sweet plans or short and sweet conversation about something great, like the way you would use a text is like, hey, how are you today? Great. What are you doing later? I'm going to be here. Do you want to meet up? Sure. Great. End of text. Like maybe 5 or 6 sentences long and you're done deal. But I can't be expected to be my entire genuine self on a chat, especially when I'm not sure who exactly I'm talking to or what they're going to do with the information I'm sending them. So I messed around with that quite a long time, and the more I pumped out there for garbage, the more the garbage got pumped back into my life. And it is a mysterious situation, because it's almost like the folks who accuse me of AI have technically used AI to write their songs, because you guys are writing songs based on texts I've sent that are more AI generated, seemingly, than generated from a human being. Now, I wrote them all. I didn't use AI. But I talked as though I was AI in my text. But I did not use AI for my music project. So what a weird mix-up and confusion between myself and the folks in the international community. It just signifies the absurdity of interpreting texts like the ones I've sent. I mean, some would be wildly rude, incredibly offensive. Emojis left and right, and then reams and reams and reams of information. All those things are signifiers of an AI chatbot. But my texts were sent all in those formats, taken very, very literally and very, very seriously, and then all hell breaks loose. And I never intended for that to happen. I said from the start, when people started expecting me to text and use text to get to know me, I can't do that. Obviously, based on the content of this channel alone, you could tell it's not easy for me to concise my thoughts and opinions in a little format. You cannot get to know somebody that way. You just can't. And I refuse to allow myself to become known that way. But I will fire off the worst bunch of crap you ever read in your entire life if you give me the chance. And if you give me the chance to fire off the worst bunch of crap you ever read in your life, and you're going to take that and turn it into an album, well, we're really in some brand new territory that I never anticipated being involved in my entire life. But here we are, nevertheless. So I can see why and how things got a little volatile, but what I don't understand is why the folks reading these texts actually took them so damn seriously. What human being on the planet would actually literally behave that way? Especially when I sprinkled the comment, I just want to meet face to face. I just want to meet 5 minutes of your time. Get to know me in person first. I insisted on these things. The exact opposite has occurred. When I realized certain artists over there in Switzerland, you give him a little tiny cube of information and he's going to turn it into an entire city street. I'm not sure if that's an overreaction or just another form of really intense creativity. I can't really fault a person for being overly creative, or maybe not overly creative, but extremely creative. But it is not okay to deceive folks around you to do this. And if there had not been the element of deception occurring, I would have been way more genuine. And none of this volatile stuff would have happened. So I will say, there's a certain guitarist over in Switzerland who has had a visceral reaction to me, and other folks associated with a certain singer over in Switzerland. And I understand why, but what you are reacting to is a persona that does not exist in real life. There's no human being on the planet that actually speaks the way I've spoken on text, via comments, and all that stuff. But it was all born out of the stress, of the shock of my entire life just imploding or exploding, however you want to put it, and getting thrown into scenarios that I am not equipped to deal with. So anyway, that's interesting. Very interesting. What I would recommend is you folks over there in Switzerland, educate yourself about the difference between a human being and what they text versus artificial intelligence chatbot and what they text. Learn the difference before you get too gung-ho about turning someone's text into songs, because most of the songs you created out of my texts are basically bullshit that I've sent pretending I was AI. I don't know why I've got this proclivity to like adopt an artificial intelligence mentality, other than artificial intelligence will sit down and have a thorough conversation with someone like myself if necessary, which I don't do often, but through my job I've had to do some. Whereas most people, you can't get 3 or 4 sentences in before they shut down, especially if you're a woman. Men don't want to hear what you have to say. And if you say too much, then you talk too much. Or if you say too much, then you're confusing. And if you say too much, you're too this, you're too that, whatever. And I do maintain that if I was a man, I would be taken way more seriously than I have been. But because I'm a woman and I have breasts, I feel like I have not been taken seriously at all. But then again, too seriously on the other hand. So what a weird mix up. All this happening right on the brink of AI exploding into the world. So maybe I was just having a premonition that AI was going to be coming on the scene, and I was just keying into all that and just firing it out through my text. But either way, it's fascinating. And I know for sure everything I wrote was basically garbage, because it all falls into the guidelines of what you don't text if you're a human being and what you do text if you are a chatbot. So that's something. And the other thing I thought about mentioning is when it comes to music, I've mentioned that the music from the band Zeal and Ardor immediately caught my attention, like within seconds. Like before I knew what I was listening to, it like alerted me, and I like stood to attention. Like, what is this? What am I hearing? What is it? Like within like a millisecond of hearing the very first sound that I heard from that band. And I got thinking, that happened to me once before when I was in the Bahamas. And we had just getting off the cruise ship that we were on, and we were making our way into a pavilion somewhere, and there were people everywhere. Now back then I did not realize I was neurodivergent, but when I was in a crowd, I would freeze. I didn't know if I was supposed to go left, right, up, down. I would just sort of freeze, and I'd become completely baffled. And unless I had someone in my family kind of like telling me, go here, go there, I would just sort of stand there and be like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And I'd sort of panic. Sometimes I'd start crying. I mean, that's not good. But I didn't realize what was wrong with me back then, and I didn't know how to manage those symptoms. But now that I know, like prepare a little bit ahead. Make sure you know where you're going and what you're supposed to be doing, and don't be afraid to ask if you are confused. So I got all that in place, so I navigate the world much more smoothly now. But back then, I didn't know. And then we entered this pavilion. There's people everywhere, wall-to-wall people. And I don't even know exactly what that place was. Maybe some shops, maybe a food court of some kind. But in the center of it, someone was playing music. And before I could discern what type of music it was or what the lyrics were, I felt this feeling I feel when I hear church music or when I hear spiritual music. It's in the church world, we call that the Holy Spirit. And I don't mean to sound dorky, and I don't mean to be irreverent, and I don't mean to introduce concepts that other people will probably make fun of. But nevertheless, it's a tangible, palatable sensation that I feel when I'm in the presence of music like that. And I've grown up in it, and that's the first type of music I ever listened to when I was little, way back to, like, as I mentioned, when I was like 6 years old. First musical artist I ever really got to know was a gospel artist. And I find music like that resonates with me immediately. And the reason I notice is because it makes me feel soothed and calm in my heart, almost like like immediately. So here I am in the Bahamas. My children are quite small. My husband's doing his thing. He's great to travel with, had a great time. He's had living life, took good care of the kids. And you know, they all know that, you know, I'm experiencing a little something. Nobody knows what to do about it. Everyone just thinks I'm being dramatic or, you know, trying to get attention and all that bad stuff they attribute to people who are a little bit outside the norm. I have to bear the brunt of that most of my life. So I tried not to make too big of a fuss, but I was like freaked right out. Like, what the heck am I supposed to be doing? You know, where are we going? What is this place? You know? But as soon as I heard that music, my whole spirit, my whole body just took a sigh of relief. And it was so palatable that I started to get teary-eyed in a good way, like happy tears. It soothed me instantly, and then all of a sudden I felt like totally at ease. And so I made my way through the crowd, and I found where the music was coming from, and it was a band native to the Bahamas, a woman and a few men, and they were playing all their traditional music, some bongos and a keyboard, and the woman was singing. And anyway, the band was called Soul Timental. SOULTIMENTAL. Soul Timental, and it is on Spotify. And the songs that they were playing are the songs off their first album. And I bought that album and I brought it home, and it is a very important part of my music catalog. But what I noticed about it immediately was what we would call in the church world the Holy Spirit. It was like surrounding this palatable sense of love and positivity and safety and calmness was surrounding the entire stage area where they were. And I was just standing there in awe, and the tears were just falling, because I realized at that moment, it doesn't matter where I am in the world. It doesn't matter how many people are around, how confused I'm feeling, or anything else. The second I hear music like that, I feel like I'm home. I recognize that spiritual component, whatever you want to call it. And so that had generated a reaction within me immediately. And I was actually in the presence of this music and the musicians singing it. It was in the room. And I had that an experience when I was at New Zealand Art, but that was on Sirius Radio in a car with my family. Same sort of thing, only coming from different opposite ends of the spectrum of the spiritual sense, because New Zealand Art is considered a satanic, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. And this band, Soul Timental, is obviously Christian. So there you got that whole dynamic. But it both affected me. One made me feel really safe and comforted, and the other made me feel kind of like on edge and like on guard. Like something bad is coming out of this music and something good is coming out. And I don't like to put it in those contexts. I really don't, because I'm sure the folks in that band are not trying to do anything bad whatsoever. They just have a different vibe, a different point of reference, and the material they make has a certain effect on the world. And I've read reviews of the band Zealand Rider, and many people consider it to be a very spiritual experience. Some have considered it to be a religious experience to hear them play live, which I have never done. And it was the same with this band, Soul Timental. It was like a religious experience, only veering in this direction, whereas Zealand Rider veers in the other. And that's why that band intrigues me. It's like you're playing around with the ability to tap into spiritual energy. And so I don't know why Mr. Gagnon pretends he doesn't know what's, like, he just acts like it's out of the realm of possibility for things to veer off into the supernatural and esoteric and whatever. But review after review says the same thing. It's like a spiritual event when you go to a Zealand Rider concert, and people react that way and say these things, and the band must surely be aware of that. So it's that kind of thing that I'm trying to discuss when I talk about all this stuff. So again, I don't really know why Mr. Gagnon pretends he doesn't know what he's doing, because he must know what he's doing if he can pull that off to an audience without it being based on Christian material, but the opposite of Christian material, and still generate that effect. He knows what he's doing. That is not easy to come by, and usually I've found in my experience, it stems out of a sincerity of heart. If you don't have that sincerity of heart, that effect is not going to exist in your music. But if you do, it will, and others will pick up on it. So I just want to mention that today. Yeah, so chatbots, human beings, spiritual things, and music. So much love and peace. I will probably be back.